Hey, good morning, everybody. Taylor Mcmullen here with the Mcmullen Homes team, coming at you with episode 4 of the Mcmullen Homes Real Estate Stats News and Tips Report. I will be covering the topic of housing affordability today. I'll put most of my emphasis in Victoria, but this sort of affects all of BC in general because of the rapid increase in housing prices we've experienced recently. Affordability has become a major issue for a lot of younger people, and just actually not just younger people, first-time home buyers. Everyone's sort of affected by this. Anyone that's wanting to purchase a home. So what my goal today is to hopefully get you guys thinking differently, thinking outside of the box when it comes to purchasing a home in an expensive marketplace. I'll quickly cover some data points that compares what the market and income was like in the 1970s versus what it's like present day. So I'll get right into it. So, sort of the essence of the issue as to why the housing market has done its thing and has made itself quite unaffordable for the average person. The major contributors are the low incomes. Incomes haven't been rising in unison with the cost of living and the cost of housing, and then of course the steep, drastic price increases that we've just experienced. So I did some digging, and I went and Paul Kershaw. He's a university professor over at UBC there in Vancouver, and he did an analysis and took the average. excuse me. He took the average home price in 1976, which was 213,000, with the median full time earnings at 54,000. And that was a 4-to-1 ratio. So you can see the spread there wasn't as drastic as present day. The average home price in Victoria is around 850,000, and the average income for BC came in at around 70,000. It's a 12-to-1 ratio. So there's quite a big difference there. I mean, you know, back then, 25% of your income, made up part of the full purchase price of a home. Now it's 1/12 of that. That's significant, and makes it that much more challenging for first time home buyers and younger people for getting into the marketplace. So this forces us to think a bit more creatively, a bit more outside of the box when it comes to purchasing a property in BC or in Victoria. Oops. Purchasing in an expensive marketplace. So 3 thoughts when saving for a down payment. So there's the traditional route. Some people may feel sheepish by doing this, but realistically, it's if you approach it as an investment between two parties, it doesn't become about your parents loaning you money anymore. It becomes about you guys going into an investment together, because that's realistically what it is. So ask a parent, ask a family member, or a friend if they'd like to co-purchase a property together. This will, make it significantly easier for you to get into the marketplace. I mean, once you're in the marketplace, you likely won't have to partner again unless you plan on doing multiple investments. But definitely consider, a family member, or a parent, or a friend. There's lots of people out there that either want to get into the market, get a place of their own, or invest. So I know that's what I did when I was looking to purchase. I visited all 3 of those sources before I was able to successfully purchase my first home. Second tip: downsizing your lifestyle. So in order to really, afford that down payment, we need to be focused and disciplined when it comes to, downsizing our expenses, and maybe downsizing some of those luxury material objects that we tend to blow a lot of our money on. Big expenses that I'll get into later on in the presentation, like your car, your phone, eating out, entertainment. There's lots of things you can do to really dumb it down just for a short period of time. It doesn't have to be long term. It's just to help you get to that down payment faster. And then, yeah, as I said, set a goal and remain disciplined throughout the saving process. You have to be consistent. That's what counts. I mean, $10 may not seem like a lot, but when saved constantly, it adds up to a significant amount over time. So be sure to check those out, and I will be going. As I said, I'll be going over a list of expenses, to help you with downsizing your lifestyle. So yeah, focus on the large expenses first. Your car, rent, phone, entertainment, as I said. Prioritize down payment savings. Car payments alone will save you anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 yearly, factoring in monthly payments, gas, and insurance. I mean, it's crazy expense when you think about it. So see if you can downsize that vehicle. You know, get the property before the Porsche, as they say, and also look for alternative affordable transportation solutions, especially if you're living in Victoria or Vancouver. You've got quite a few methods. If you don't need a car, might be best to hold off on that until you get the property. So here's some thoughts and ideas around um, downsizing your lifestyle, and some things that I've heard other people doing to help um, you know take on this challenge. So I've actually met people that rent out their car to vacationers for additional cash. So if you actually combine this in unison with the Airbnb, you've got, for instance, if you were to purchase a property and you were to then Airbnb it out, you could also Airbnb your car at the same time to those same people for additional cash. So you can take that extra bedroom in that room you're renting. Make sure you confirm this with your landlord. rent it out, and also at the same time rent out your car. You'll have your rent covered for that month, which allows for you to save, and you'll be earning some extra income. So that's a thought. Maybe bending the rules a bit by renting and Airbnb at the same time, but you got to ask, you got to start thinking outside of the box here when it comes to saving money and earning an income and purchasing a property. You have to get creative in an expensive marketplace. So to help tackle monthly rent, find a roommate and share the monthly rental expense. I lived in a basement suite for a little while with a couple of friends, and it definitely helped expedite the saving process by having them split the monthly costs. So that's a pretty obvious one, pretty logical, and I think a lot of people are doing that today. So good for you all who are taking part in that. Again, this one's a bit outside of the box, but if a landlord agrees, you can sublet the living room to another student to further offset monthly rental costs. Typically, suites come in 2 bedrooms. So if you were able to cut off that part of your living area and convert the living room into an additional bedroom, and your landlord and you and your landlord agreed on a rental agreement between you and this other individual, they become your responsibility. I'm sure as long as you cut the landlord in, they'll be willing to allow for this to happen. That extra student could cover your monthly rent, which means you live relatively rent free, and you can use that money to help save for your property. Another thing, if the landlord agrees, you could Airbnb out a spare room downstairs. You never know until you ask. I've heard of people doing this. It's I could see coming into a lot of roadblocks with landlords when it comes to renting out their own property. But I've heard of people doing this, and it's definitely an interesting scenario, especially when looking to save. Why not try and squeeze the opportunity out of every situation if you can. Another option, something else. I actually had a friend offer this on my place, which I thought was kind of cool, and it kind of gave me the idea for other individuals. Is offer to assist with yard work and any other regular maintenance tasks to help the landlord reduce maintenance costs. In turn, request a reduction in your rent. So that's certainly another option, another avenue. And then the other thing to consider is make sure your credit score is good. Work to improve this during the savings process. You'll need a good credit score when qualifying for a mortgage. So that's a very important thing to keep up to date with. So now that it's time to purchase, now that we've downsized our lifestyle, we've come up with the down payment. Now it's time to purchase. So where do I look, and how do I purchase? So you'll need at least 10%. I mean, in some cases, 5%. Basically, anything under 20%, you'll be qualifying for mortgage insurance. But that's a good target. That could increase your expenses a little bit, but a good target I would say is 10%. 5%, I don't really see that offered too much anymore, but 10%, higher the better. Let's just put it that way. So get creative when it comes to purchasing. So you're going to want to focus on location. Of course, you've heard that term, that adage, location, location, location. It's very true. It's important. So when it comes to rental properties, or when it comes to purchasing your own property, It's important to put yourself in a location that's desirable from a resale standpoint, from a market appreciation standpoint, from a rental standpoint. All those things factored into it really make a huge difference. So we got schools, hospitals, and amenities. The location will determine where the majority of your opportunity is. So schools, you've got student bedrooms, you've got the potentiality for a residential daycare. Hospitals, you could rent the house out or suite to medical professionals, provide senior assisted living, provide disability assisted living. Amenities, everyone needs to work, so everyone needs a place to rent. So, even your baristas at Starbucks or your Tim Hortons employees, they need places to rent. So if you're around big outlets, big malls, that's typically another good spot to be for renting out bedrooms and suites. And then, of course, we live in BC, so Airbnb is pretty much a pretty popular method of investing here as well. We live in a beautiful province. Everyone wants to come here and travel. You'll always have that place filled up if you're in a good spot. So, getting creative around covering your mortgage. So, purchasing an investment property and continue to rent elsewhere. So that was something that I've seen a lot of clients do. Is what they'll do is they'll come and they'll purchase an investment property. They'll continue to live where they're at, continue to rent. They'll purchase the investment property and they'll pay down that equity monthly by having the tenant, pay down that monthly mortgage. Hopefully it's covering the expenses, but for the most part, having that tenant in there makes that investment basically cover itself. You build up the equity, you move into it at a later date, or you sell it and then you take that equity pile up and bring it into a house. That's one thought when looking to get into a house or a bigger house. Just consider staying where you are. Consider renting, and then purchase an investment property. Have someone pay down that mortgage for you, a tenant. If you do manage to purchase a house, the other option is live in the basement, rent upstairs. I think that's a pretty obvious one. Or live in the upstairs, rent the downstairs. I did both of those. So that was very effective for me when it came to purchasing and affording my mortgage. Having that income assistance was vital for sure. I've heard of people Airbnb-ing their bedrooms or parts of the house. That can certainly bring on its own pros and cons. I mean, the benefit to an Airbnb is you kind of get more. You can treat yourself as sort of like a portable hotel, I guess, or a individualistic hotel. And what I like about the Airbnb model is that your tenants are, yes, they're changing quite frequently, but you get quite a bit more, and they're not committed to a long-time term. You're not committed to a long-term tenant. So if you have problems with them, they're out of there in a week anyways. And they do pay, a fair bit of money. You can get the same amount of income per month by renting out your place for a week or two, as you could by just following the traditional route of just renting out your property to a tenant. Another thing that's very popular these days is the senior assisted living. I mean, my own grandfather's having an issue getting into the retirement residences, so I know how challenging it is. And then having senior clients as well, moving into these things after we sell their property, or them talking about being on these long wait lists. They're very expensive. $5,000 to $10,000 per month to live in these care facilities. Mind you, it does come with everything they need. I mean, it's arguably worth what you're paying, but they have some huge expenses to pay. So there's a very big shortage of senior housing, and an even bigger shortage of affordable senior housing. So yeah, there's definitely some opportunities in it there. I mean, if you look at the wave, there's a huge wave of baby boomers coming. So there's going to be a huge demand for senior housing and affordable senior housing. So I'm looking into models of residential senior assisted living, where you have a couple of seniors living within the home with a full-time caretaker. So anyways, look into that further. Can you fill that niche? That is an interesting niche, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there for senior assisted living. And again, residential daycares. I think residential daycares on the other end of the spectrum, helping out the younger kids. and their parents. There's a huge shortage of daycares, and the there's the issue of affordability for the business owners as well. A lot of daycares are shutting down in BC just because of the fact that they can't cover the monthly expenses. It's very expensive to run a daycare, and it just doesn't make sense dollar sense wise. So I think the new opportunity will be residential daycare. I've seen them in and around Gordon Head, where I live, different parts of Victoria. They come up here and there, and they're definitely a really effective method. Having spoken to and talked to and even considered it myself, not me running the daycare, but having a friend who's licensed come and use my property to potentially host the daycare is a thought in my mind in the near future. And that can be a really great income source. I mean, that could provide you enough income to basically cover the housing costs and provide you a bit of cash flow. And that's really at the end of the day what we're after. I mean, if we want that equity pay down, but if you can get some cash flow, that's one step closer to financial freedom, taking you out of that rat race, the 8 to 5 rat race that we all end up chasing at some point. If you already have the house, of course, you can build the garden suite in the backyard. I went over that last episode, so if you missed that, go back and check episode 3. And I went in depth with regards to garden suites and justifying it versus purchasing a condo as an investment. I do think garden suites are an excellent opportunity. It's a detached dwelling with its own meter setup and everything. So if you're renting that out, basically you're responsible for utilities, and this is your monthly rent. So that can bring a multitude of opportunities in itself. I mean, it's a detached dwelling, so that's where you could host your senior assisted living. You could potentially make that large enough to turn into a daycare in your backyard. There's lots of things you can do. You just got to start thinking outside the box a bit, and that's how you learn to purchase in an expensive marketplace. And then another thing I've seen, I'm considering doing this actually, is putting in some square footage under your deck, turning it into a big office, or as I said, that could be where the daycare is, or some extra bedrooms. But make sure you're going to the city and getting all this stuff permitted. I don't want to be giving advice and then finding out that everyone's doing all this without getting your permits all in place. Anyways, so yeah, that's everything I wanted to talk about today. I've decided to split up my shows into informational content pieces and market statistics. So next week or 2 weeks from now, I'll go over the August statistics, and then I'll cover another topic 2 weeks after that. I just figured keeping it shorter was better for everyone, and since we all have the attention span of fruit flies these days, I want to make sure I'm bringing as much value to you guys as possible while keeping you engaged. So thanks for watching, and for more information, you can please refer to the comment section below. I'll be posting some links to the analysis I mentioned at the beginning, as well as what I'll do is I'll have this live presentation transcribed into a blog post so that you guys can take it for your reference for the future. And the list I showed today was just very minor. There's a million things you can do with your property to help with affordability. These are just some things I thought of when it came to me purchasing my own property. These were things that I considered to help tackle affordability and ultimately not end up house poor. That's not the goal. You want to purchase that property and still be able to maintain your lifestyle comfortably without having to give up too much. But during the initial period of saving up for that property, you may have to consider downsizing your life. And who knows, once you buy that property, you'll probably be okay with living that way anyways. I know I've certainly downsized and have a lot less expectations for things, and that's really helped me when it came to saving for a property. So yeah, I will post this all in the comments below. I will transcribe this post into a blog format so that you guys can reference it and take it as a bit of a checklist, or to help inspire some thought. So I hope I was able to add value to this today, to you guys today. And if you have any questions or suggestions for future content, please refer to the comments below or message us directly. I'm happy to hear from you. Happy to answer any questions related to the real estate market. And yeah, so that's all for today, and we will catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Take care.